After the extinction of the dinosaurs, Earth entered a new period called the Cenozoic Era. With the disappearance of large reptiles, many environments were left open for other forms of life. Mammals, which had been small and less dominant, began to grow in number, size and variety. Birds also spread widely, while plants continued to develop across different regions. During this time, Earth itself changed significantly. Continents moved closer to their current positions, and the climate shifted between warmer and cooler conditions. These changes affected how living things adapted and survived. Over millions of years, new species appeared, including early human ancestors. The Cenozoic Era shaped modern ecosystems and established mammals as the dominant animals on Earth. So what was Earth really like during this time of change, growth and survival? The day the dinosaurs disappeared marks one of the most important turning points in the long history of life on Earth. For a very long time before that day, dinosaurs were the dominant animals on land. They lived in many different environments, from forests to plains to coastal regions. Some were very large and walked on 4 legs, while others were smaller and moved quickly on 2 legs. There were plant-eating dinosaurs and meat-eating dinosaurs, each playing a role in the balance of life around them. They had existed for millions of years, adapting and changing as the Earth itself changed. Then, in a relatively short period of time, their long rule came to an end. Scientists have spent many years studying what caused this sudden and dramatic change. The most widely accepted explanation is that a massive asteroid struck the Earth. This event is believed to have happened around 66 million years ago. The impact site is located near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in present-day Mexico. The asteroid is thought to have been many kilometers wide, and when it hit the Earth, it released an enormous amount of energy. The force of the collision caused immediate destruction in the surrounding region. Rocks were crushed, and the ground shook violently. The impact created a large crater, and debris was thrown high into the atmosphere. The effects of the impact were not limited to the immediate area. The energy released sent shockwaves across the planet. Forests near the impact site were destroyed almost instantly. The heat generated by the collision caused fires to break out over large areas. Burning material was carried by the air, spreading flames even farther. Many animals would have died quickly from the heat, the shock, or the collapsing environment around them. At the same time, a huge amount of dust, ash, and small particles was pushed into the atmosphere. This material rose high above the Earth and began to spread across the globe. As it did, it blocked sunlight from reaching the surface. The sky would have grown darker over time, and temperatures would have started to drop. Plants, which depend on sunlight to make food through photosynthesis, were among the first to suffer. Without enough light, many plants could not survive. As plants died, the animals that depended on them for food began to struggle. This chain reaction spread through the entire food web. Herbivores that ate plants had less to eat, and many of them began to die off. Carnivores that hunted those herbivores also faced a lack of food. Over time, more and more species were affected. The balance that had existed for millions of years was broken. The extinction event did not happen in a single moment everywhere, but it unfolded over a relatively short period in geological terms. The oceans were also affected by these changes. The dust and debris in the atmosphere reduced the amount of sunlight reaching the water. This had a strong impact on tiny organisms called phytoplankton, which live near the surface and rely on sunlight. These organisms form the base of the marine food chain. When their numbers dropped, it affected many other forms of life in the ocean. Fish and larger marine animals that depended on them also faced serious challenges. In addition to the darkness and cooling, there may have been other effects that made conditions even worse. Some scientists believed that the impact caused chemical changes in the atmosphere. For example, gases released during the collision could have led to acid rain. This would have damaged plants and affected freshwater systems. Changes in temperature and chemistry in the oceans may also have made it difficult for marine life to survive. It is important to understand that not all forms of life disappeared. While many species of dinosaurs became extinct, some animals managed to survive. Small mammals, for example, were able to find shelter and food in ways that larger animals could not. Birds, which are now understood to be descendants of certain types of dinosaurs, also survived. Their ability to fly and adapt to changing conditions may have helped them endure the difficult period after the impact. Reptiles, such as crocodiles and turtles, also survived. These animals had certain features that made them more resilient. Some could go for long periods without food, while others could live in water, where conditions may have been slightly more stable. Insects, too, continue to exist and play a role in the environment. Plants that could survive in low-light conditions or recover quickly after damage also managed to persist. The extinction of the dinosaurs and many other species opened the way for new forms of life to grow and develop. With the large dinosaurs gone, many ecological spaces became available. Animals that had previously lived in the shadow of dinosaurs now had more opportunities. Over time, mammals began to increase in number and diversity. They evolved into many different forms, some living on land, some in water, and some even taking to the air. The Earth itself also continued to change during and after this period. The continents were moving slowly due to the process of plate tectonics. Climate patterns shifted and new environments formed. These changes, combined with the absence of the dominant dinosaurs, allowed life to take new directions. The world that emerged after the extinction event was very different from the one that existed before it. Fossils provide much of the evidence that scientists used to study this event. By examining layers of rock, researchers have found a thin layer, rich in a rare element called iridium. This element is more common in asteroids than in the Earth's crust. Its presence in this layer suggests that a large extraterrestrial object struck the Earth at that time. This layer is found in many parts of the world, showing that the event had a global impact. In addition to the iridium layer, scientists have found other signs of the impact. Shocked quartz, a type of mineral that forms under intense pressure, has been discovered in rocks from this period. There are also tiny glass-like particles that formed when material melted and cooled quickly after being thrown into the air. These pieces of evidence help build a clearer picture of what happened. The study of this extinction event is part of a broader field known as paleontology, which focuses on ancient life. Researchers use many methods to understand the past, including studying fossils, analyzing rock layers, and using modern technology to model ancient environments. Through these efforts, they continue to learn more about how the event unfolded and how it affected life on Earth. The sudden disappearance of the dinosaurs was not just the end of one group of animals, it marked the end of an entire era. The age of dinosaurs had lasted for a very long time, and its conclusion changed the direction of evolution. Life on Earth did not stop, but it took a different path. The animals and plants that survived began to fill the gaps left behind, leading to new forms and new ecosystems. The period immediately after the impact would have been extremely challenging for any living organism. With reduced sunlight, lower temperatures, and damaged ecosystems, survival required certain traits. Small size, flexibility in diet, and the ability to find shelter were important advantages. Over time, as conditions began to improve, life slowly recovered. Recovery did not happen overnight. It took many thousands of years for ecosystems to rebuild. Plants began to grow again, providing food and shelter for animals. As plant life returned, herbivores increased in number, followed by carnivores. The process of recovery was gradual, with different regions experiencing changes at different times. One of the most important outcomes of this event was the rise of mammals. Before the extinction, mammals existed but were generally small and not very dominant. After the disappearance of the large dinosaurs, mammals had more opportunities to expand. They evolved into many different forms, including those that would eventually lead to primates and much later humans. Birds also continued to evolve and diversify. As descendants of certain dinosaurs, they carried forward some features of their ancestors. Over time, they adapted to many environments, from forests to oceans to open skies. Today, birds are found all over the world, showing the lasting impact of that evolutionary path. The oceans also saw changes after the extinction event. While many marine species were lost, others survived and adapted. Coral reefs, for example, were affected but eventually recovered. Fish and other marine animals continued to evolve, leading to the rich diversity seen in the oceans today. The event that ended the age of dinosaurs is often referred to as a mass extinction. This term is used when a large number of species disappear in a relatively short period of time. There have been several mass extinctions in Earth's history, but this one is among the most well-known because of its impact on dinosaurs. Understanding this event helps scientists learn more about how life responds to sudden and extreme changes. It also provides insights into the importance of environmental stability. When conditions change too quickly or too severely, many species may not be able to adapt in time. The study of past extinctions can also offer lessons for the present. Today, the Earth is experiencing changes due to natural processes and human activity. By studying what happened in the past, scientists can better understand the potential effects of current changes and how to protect existing ecosystems. The story of the day the dinosaurs disappeared is not just about destruction. It is also about change and the ability of life to continue in new forms. While many species were lost, others survived and went on to shape the future of life on Earth. The event stands as a reminder of how powerful natural forces can be and how they can alter the course of history in a very short time. As research continues, scientists are finding more details about this event. New discoveries and improved technology allow for a deeper understanding of the processes involved. Each piece of evidence adds to the overall picture, helping to explain how such a major change could occur. The impact of the asteroid, the resulting environmental changes, and the chain reaction through ecosystems all played a role in the disappearance of the dinosaurs. These factors combined to create conditions that were too difficult for many species to survive. At the same time, they created opportunities for other forms of life to grow and evolve. The Earth today is very different from the world of the dinosaurs. Continents have moved, climates have changed, and new species have appeared. Yet, the evidence of that ancient event remains in the rocks beneath our feet. By studying these clues, scientists continue to uncover the story of one of the most dramatic events in the history of life on Earth. Life on Earth has always been shaped by change. The disappearance of the dinosaurs is one of the clearest examples of how quickly and completely the balance of life can shift. It shows that even the most dominant groups can be affected by sudden events. At the same time, it highlights the resilience of life and its ability to continue in new and different ways. The day the dinosaurs disappeared was not just a single moment, but a series of events that unfolded over time. The impact, the darkness, the cooling, and the changes in ecosystems all contributed to the outcome. A world in recovery began in silence and confusion after the Great Extinction Event had removed a vast number of living things from the surface of Earth. The planet did not return to calm conditions immediately. Instead, it passed through a long and difficult period where land, oceans, and air were all affected by the sudden loss of life and the powerful forces that had caused the destruction. The skies were not clear at first. Dust, ash, and tiny particles filled the atmosphere and blocked sunlight from reaching the ground. This made the surface colder and darker than it had been before. Plants that depended on sunlight struggled to survive, and many of them died. Without plants, animals that depended on them for food also disappeared. The chain of life had been broken in many places, and what remained was fragile and uncertain. The land itself showed clear signs of damage. Forests that had once been full of tall trees and thick growth were reduced to open areas covered in dead plant material. In some regions, fires had burned large parts of the surface. The soil was dry in some places and washed away in others. Rivers carried large amounts of loose material into lakes and oceans. The ground looked empty and quiet, with very few signs of active life. Many areas that had once been busy with movement were now still. In the oceans, this situation was also difficult. The water had been affected by changes in temperature and chemistry. Many marine species had died, especially those that depended on stable conditions. Coral structures had been damaged or destroyed. Small organisms that formed the base of ocean life were reduced in number. This meant that larger animals that depended on them also struggled. The balance of ocean life had been disturbed, and it took time before it could begin to recover. The air was not stable either. With so much dust and gas released into the atmosphere, weather patterns changed. Rainfall was not regular, and some areas experienced long dry periods, while others had heavy storms. The usual patterns that living things had adapted to were no longer reliable. This made survival even more difficult for the few species that remained. Despite these harsh conditions, life did not completely disappear. Some organisms managed to survive because they were able to adapt to the new environment. These survivors were often small, simple, and flexible in how they lived. Many of them could eat different types of food or survive in poor conditions. Some lived underground or in water, where they were protected from the worst effects on the surface. These organisms became the starting point for the rebuilding of life on Earth. In the early stages of recovery, the most important role was played by small plants and microorganisms. These included simple forms of plant life that could grow quickly when conditions allowed. As the dust in the atmosphere slowly settled and sunlight began to return, these plants started to spread across the land. They did not grow everywhere at once. Instead, they appeared in patches where the soil and conditions were suitable. Over time, these patches expanded and began to connect with each other. These early plants helped to stabilize the soil. Their roots held the ground together and reduced the amount of material washed away by rain. They also began to improve the quality of the soil by adding organic matter as they grew and died. This made it easier for other plants to take hold later. The return of plant life marked an important step in the recovery process, as it provided food and shelter for other organisms. As plant life increased, small animals began to appear in greater numbers. Many of these were insects and other simple creatures. They fed on plants, dead material, or other small organisms. Their presence added more activity to the environment. They also played a role in spreading plant seeds and breaking down dead matter, which helped to recycle nutrients back into the soil. Over time, slightly larger animals began to return. These included small reptiles, early mammals, and birds. They were not the same as the large creatures that had lived before the extinction. Instead, they were generally smaller and more adaptable. They could move quickly, find shelter easily, and survive on limited resources. These qualities helped them succeed in a world that was still unstable. The rebuilding of ecosystems did not happen quickly. It took a very long time for life to spread and form complex systems again. At first, the ecosystems were simple. There were only a few types of plants and animals, and the connections between them were limited. As time passed, more species appeared, and the relationships between them became more detailed. Food chains began to form again, with plants supporting herbivores and herbivores supporting predators. The oceans also began to recover, though the process was slow. Small marine organisms were among the first to return. These included plankton, which are tiny organisms that drift in the water. They are important because they form the base of ocean life. As plankton populations increased, they provided food for larger organisms, such as small fish and other marine animals. Gradually, more complex forms of life returned to the oceans. Coral structures took a long time to rebuild. These structures depend on stable conditions and the presence of specific types of organisms. As the water conditions improved, new coral began to grow in some areas. This created habitats for many marine species and helped to increase biodiversity in the oceans. The climate also began to stabilize over time. As dust and gases cleared from the atmosphere, sunlight returned more fully and temperatures became more regular. This allowed plants to grow more consistently and supported the expansion of life into new areas. Rainfall patterns became more stable, which helped to support both land and aquatic ecosystems. As ecosystems grew more complex, competition between species increased. Different organisms competed for food, space, and other resources. This led to changes in populations and the development of new traits that improved survival. Over many generations, this process led to the emergence of new species that were better suited to the conditions of the recovering world. The land began to change in appearance as vegetation spread. Areas that had once been bare started to show signs of green growth. Over time, small plants were replaced by larger ones, including shrubs and trees. Forests began to form again, though they were different from those that had existed before the extinction. The types of plants and their arrangement reflected the new conditions and the species that had survived. Animals also became more diverse. Early mammals began to explore different ways of living. Some remained small and lived in sheltered environments, while others began to grow larger and occupy new roles in the ecosystem. Birds also became more varied, adapting to different habitats and food sources. Reptiles continued to exist, though their dominance had been reduced compared to earlier times. The rebuilding of life was not even across the entire planet. Some regions recovered faster than others, depending on local conditions. Areas with better soil, water availability, and fewer environmental stresses saw quicker growth of plants and animals. Other regions took much longer to recover and remained less diverse for extended periods. The interaction between living things and their environment became more balanced as time passed. Plants influenced the atmosphere by producing oxygen and absorbing carbon dioxide. Animals influenced plant populations through feeding and movement. Microorganisms played a key role in breaking down dead material and recycling nutrients. These processes helped to create a more stable and sustainable system. The recovery of Earth after the extinction was a long process marked by gradual change. it did not happen in a straight line. There were periods of progress and periods of difficulty. Environmental changes, such as shifts in climate or geological activity, sometimes disrupted the process. However, life continued to adapt and move forward. The new ecosystems that developed were not the same as those that had existed before. The extinction had removed many species permanently, and the survivors formed the basis for a different arrangement of life. This led to the rise of new groups of organisms and the decline of others. Over time, these changes shaped the future of life on Earth. The oceans once again became full of activity as more species appeared and interacted. Fish populations increased and new forms of marine life developed. Predators and prey established new relationships. The balance of ocean ecosystems became more stable, though it remained different from earlier periods. On land, forests expanded and covered large areas. These forests provided habitats for many types of animals and helped to regulate the climate. The presence of vegetation reduced soil erosion and improved water cycles. Rivers and lakes became more stable environments, supporting a wide range of life. As the recovery continued, the diversity of life increased further. New species continued to evolve, filling roles that had been left empty by the extinction. This process created a rich and varied world, though it had taken a very long time to reach this stage. The rebuilding of ecosystems showed the ability of life to continue even after severe disruption. Small and simple organisms played a major role in this process, forming the foundation for more complex systems. Over time, these systems grew in complexity and stability, leading to the development of the modern patterns of life. The period immediately after the extinction was one of difficulty, but also one of change and development. The Earth did not remain empty. Instead, it slowly filled again with life, shaped by the conditions of the new environment and the organisms that had managed to survive. The time after the disappearance of the large reptiles that once dominated land marked a long period of change on Earth. Many groups of living things were affected strongly during that transition. A major extinction event took place at the end of a long period known as the Cretaceous, which ended about 66 million years ago. During this time, many living groups that had been widespread for millions of years disappeared entirely. The environments on land, in water, and in the air changed in many ways. After this event, living conditions on Earth were different, and many ecological roles that had once been filled became open in many regions of the planet. Mammals had already existed for a long time before this event. They were present during the time when large reptiles were dominant on land. These early mammals were generally small in body size, and they lived in a wide range of environments. Some lived on the ground surface, some lived in underground spaces, and some moved through trees. Their daily activity patterns often involved nighttime activity, which reduced direct contact with many large predators that were active during daylight hours. These early mammals had already developed several important biological features that supported survival in changing environments. These features included the presence of hair covering the body, the ability to produce milk for feeding young, and a warm internal body temperature system that remained stable across different external conditions. The extinction event that occurred at the end of the Cretaceous period removed many dominant animal groups from ecosystems across the planet. This change created new ecological conditions, where resources such as food, shelter, and space became available in many regions. Mammals were among the groups that continued through this period. Because they were already present in small ecological roles, they were able to expand into new environments over time. The early stages after this extinction involved gradual changes in ecosystems, where plant life and small animal groups began to reorganize across land areas. In the early part of the Paleogene period, which began after the extinction event, mammals started to diversify in many directions. This diversification involved the development of many different body forms, feeding methods and lifestyles. Some mammals developed adaptations for feeding on plant material, while others developed adaptations for consuming other animals, insects, or a combination of available food sources. The expansion of different plant groups also influenced how mammals developed feeding structures, such as teeth shapes and jaw movement patterns. These changes allowed mammals to use a wide range of available food resources. The structure of mammal bodies played an important role in their ability to expand into many ecological roles. Mammals have a backbone structure and an internal skeleton that supports movement on land. Their limbs are positioned under the body in a way that allows steady movement across different surfaces. The presence of hair provides insulation that helps maintain stable body temperature. The production of milk allows newborn mammals to receive nutrition directly from their mothers during early stages of life, which supports growth and development. These features existed before the extinction event and became more widely expressed in different mammal groups afterward. The early evolution of mammals began millions of years before the extinction of the large reptiles. Mammals originated from a group of ancient vertebrate animals known as synapsids. Over long periods of time, changes in skull structure, jaw movement, and teeth arrangement gradually produced early mammal forms. These early mammals had differences in tooth types within the same mouth, allowing different functions such as cutting, tearing, and grinding food. The development of different tooth types supported a wider range of feeding behaviors. This characteristic remained important in later mammal groups. During the time when large reptiles were dominant on land, mammals remained relatively small in many regions. Their small size allowed them to use small spaces for shelter and protection. Some lived in underground burrows, while others lived among vegetation or rocky environments. Their activity patterns often involved feeding during low-light conditions. These behaviors supported survival during a time when larger animals occupied many open environments. After the extinction event, ecological roles that had been filled by large reptiles in earlier times became available in many ecosystems. Mammals gradually expanded into these roles over long periods of time. This expansion occurred through many generations, where small changes in body structure, behavior, and feeding methods accumulated. Different mammal groups began to develop distinct forms that suited different environments. Some mammals developed strong limbs for running across open land areas. Some developed limbs suited for climbing. Some developed bodies adapted for digging. Some developed aquatic adaptations that supported movement in water environments. The development of diversity among mammals involved changes in reproductive strategies, feeding habits, and movement abilities. Mammals give birth to live young in most cases, although some groups lay eggs. The young receive care from parents, which increases survival during early development stages. This care includes feeding, protection, and guidance in learning survival behaviors. Over time, these reproductive patterns supported the growth of mammal populations in different environments. The early Paleogene period also saw changes in plant life. Flowering plants became widespread across many regions. These plants provided new sources of food for herbivorous mammals. Leaves, fruits, seeds, and stems became important components of mammal diets in many areas. As plant diversity increased, mammal feeding adaptations also became more varied. Teeth structures became specialized in different groups for processing different plant materials. Insect populations also played a major role in early mammal development after the extinction event. Many mammals consumed insects as a major food source. Insect availability provided a consistent source of nutrition in many environments. Some mammals developed features that supported insect feeding, such as sharp teeth and sensitive sensory systems for detecting movement and sound. These adaptations supported survival in environments where plant food sources were limited or seasonal. The structure of mammal sensory systems also supported their expansion into many ecological roles. Mammals have developed hearing systems that detect a wide range of sound frequencies. Many mammals also have strong senses of smell that allow detection of food sources, predators, and other animals in the environment. Vision systems vary among mammal groups, with some adapted for low light conditions and others adapted for daylight activity. These sensory abilities supported survival in changing environments after the extinction event. The internal body systems of mammals also contributed to their ability to survive in different environments. The respiratory system allows efficient oxygen intake, which supports energy production in body cells. The circulatory system transports oxygen and nutrients throughout the body. The digestive system processes a wide range of food types depending on the species. These systems function together to support movement, growth, and reproduction. As time progressed after the extinction event, mammals began to occupy a wide range of ecological roles. Some mammals became herbivores that fed primarily on plant material. These mammals developed teeth suitable for grinding and breaking down plant fibers. Others became carnivores that fed on other animals, developing sharp teeth and strong jaw muscles. Some mammals became omnivores, consuming both plant and animal matter, depending on availability. These feeding strategies allowed mammals to use many available food sources in different environments. The environments of Earth during this time included forests, open land areas, wetlands, and coastal regions. Mammals adapted to each of these environments through gradual changes in body form and behavior. Forest environments supported climbing mammals and small ground-dwelling mammals. Open land environments supported mammals with strong legs adapted for movement across long distances. Wetland environments supported mammals with adaptations for swimming or partial water life. Coastal regions supported mammals that interacted with both land and water systems. The fossil record provides evidence of many early mammal groups that appeared after the extinction event. These fossils show gradual changes in bone structure, teeth arrangement, and body size over time. Fossils also show the presence of many different mammal groups that lived in different regions of the world. These groups include early relatives of modern mammals, such as primates, rodents, carnivores, and hoofed mammals. The development of brain structure in mammals also played a role in their expansion. Mammals have relatively large brain sizes in relation to body size in many groups. This supports learning ability, memory, and behavioral flexibility. These features allow mammals to respond to environmental changes and find food sources in different conditions. Behavioral flexibility supports survival in environments that change over time. The interaction between mammals and other living groups also influence their development. Birds, reptiles, amphibians, insects, and fish all continued to exist after the extinction event. Mammals interacted with these groups through feeding relationships, competition for resources, and shared habitats. These interactions influenced how mammals developed new behaviors and physical traits over time. Climate conditions on Earth also changed during the early part of the Paleogene period. Temperature levels varied across different regions, and environmental conditions shifted gradually over time. These changes influenced vegetation patterns and the distribution of habitats. Mammals adapted to these changes through migration, behavioral adjustment, and physical adaptation over many generations. The development of mammal diversity continued through long periods of time after the extinction event. New groups appeared with specialized adaptations for specific environments. Some mammals developed gliding abilities between trees. Some developed strong digging abilities for underground life. Some developed specialized feeding structures for consuming specific food sources. These adaptations allowed mammals to occupy many ecological roles across the planet. The early history of mammals after the extinction of large reptiles shows a long process of expansion into many environments. This expansion involved gradual changes in physical structure, behavior, and feeding strategies. Mammals developed a wide range of forms and functions across different habitats. Their presence became widespread in forests, open land areas, water environments, and underground spaces across the planet. The Paleogene period began after a major turning point in Earth's history, when the world entered a new phase of life development and environmental change. It marked the opening part of the Cenozoic Era, a long span of time when living things on land and in the oceans started to rebuild and expand in many directions after a large extinction event that removed a very wide range of species. During this time, Earth did not remain the same. The land, oceans, atmosphere, and living systems all entered a state of adjustment. Life forms that survived earlier. Environmental stress began to spread into many regions, and new groups of organisms slowly appeared and developed. At the start of this period, Earth was recovering from a global disruption that had affected ecosystems across the planet. Many large animals had disappeared, and this created open ecological spaces in many environments. These spaces allowed surviving organisms to expand into new habitats. Small mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, insects, and plant groups all began to adjust to new conditions. Forests began to return in many areas, and plant life became an important foundation for rebuilding ecosystems. The climate during the early part of the Paleogene was generally warm in many regions of the world. This warmth influenced how plants and animals spread across land. Tropical and subtropical vegetation extended into areas that are now much cooler in modern times. Forests covered large regions of continents, and plant growth supported the rapid development of many animal groups. Moist conditions in many areas helped vegetation grow densely, and this vegetation provided food and shelter for many living organisms. Over time, climate patterns changed gradually. While early conditions were warm, shifts in temperature and rainfall patterns began to appear. Some regions became cooler and drier, and these changes influenced the distribution of plants and animals. Ecosystems adjusted slowly to these changes. Certain plant types expanded in areas where conditions became suitable, while others reduced in number in regions where conditions became less favorable. Marine environments also experienced significant development during this period. Oceans supported a wide range of life forms, including fish, early marine mammals, mollusks, and microscopic organisms. Ocean currents influenced the distribution of nutrients, and this affected marine ecosystems. Coral systems developed in warm, shallow waters, and marine food chains became more structured as different species adapted to their ecological roles. One of the most important developments during this period was the expansion of mammals. After the disappearance of many large reptile groups that once dominated land environments, mammals began to occupy many ecological roles. Early mammals during this time were still relatively small in body size, and they occupied a wide variety of habitats, including forests, riverbanks, and open land areas. These mammals developed different feeding strategies, movement patterns, and reproductive behaviors that allowed them to survive in changing environments. The early part of the Paleogene saw the development of many mammal groups that later became important in Earth's biological history. Some mammals adapted to living in trees, using forest environments for food and shelter. Others adapted to ground environments, feeding on plants, insects, or small animals. Some groups developed semi-aquatic lifestyles, living near water bodies and feeding in aquatic environments. This diversification allowed mammals to occupy many ecological niches that were previously unavailable. Birds also expanded in number and diversity during this period. Many bird groups developed new feeding and movement adaptations. Some birds became specialized for forest living, while others adapted to open environments or coastal regions. Birds filled many ecological roles, including feeding on insects, plants, and small animals. Their ability to move across different environments helped them spread widely across continents. Reptiles continued to exist in many environments during this time. Although some large reptile groups had disappeared earlier, other reptile groups remained active and adapted to new ecological conditions. Snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodile-related species continued to develop and occupy specific habitats. These animals adjusted to available food sources and environmental conditions, maintaining their presence in ecosystems across the world. Insect life remained highly diverse and abundant throughout the Paleogene. Insects played important roles in pollination, decomposition, and food chains. Many insect groups developed relationships with flowering plants, which were also expanding during this period. As flowering plants spread, insects that fed on nectar, pollen, leaves, and plant tissues also expanded. This interaction supported the growth of both plant and insect populations. Plant life during the Paleogene experienced significant development. Forests were widespread in many regions, and plant types included a mixture of evergreen and deciduous species. Flowering plants became increasingly important in many ecosystems. These plants produced flowers and seeds that allowed them to spread efficiently across different environments. As plants spread, they influenced soil conditions, water cycles, and habitat structure. The development of flowering plants also influenced animal life. Many animals began to rely on flowers, fruits, and seeds as food sources. This led to new feeding behaviors and ecological interactions. Some animals fed on leaves and stems, while others specialized in consuming fruits and seeds. These interactions supported the growth of complex ecosystems. In addition to forests, other plant environments also developed. Wetlands, grass-like areas in early forms, and mixed vegetation zones appeared in different regions depending on climate and soil conditions. These environments supported different types of animals and contributed to ecosystem diversity. The Earth's continents during the Paleogene were in different positions compared to their arrangement in later periods. These landmasses were slowly moving due to geological forces beneath the Earth's surface. This movement influenced ocean circulation patterns and climate conditions. As continents shifted, new land connections and separations appeared, affecting the movement of animals and plants. Mountain formation continued in several regions of the world. As land masses moved, pressure beneath the Earth's crust caused the formation of mountain ranges. These geological changes influenced weather patterns by affecting wind movement and rainfall distribution. Mountains also created new habitats at different elevations, allowing plants and animals to adapt to a variety of environmental conditions. River systems developed and changed across continents. Water flow patterns shaped landscapes by cutting through rock and soil over long periods. Rivers provided habitats for fish, amphibians and other organisms. Floodplains near rivers supported plant growth and created fertile environments for many species. During the Paleogene, the atmosphere continued to support life, but its composition and climate effects were influenced by ongoing environmental changes. Temperature variations affected evaporation and rainfall patterns. These changes influenced ecosystems on land and in the oceans. Weather systems gradually developed more structured patterns in different regions of the planet. The fossil record from this period shows evidence of gradual changes in life forms. Fossils of early mammals, birds, reptiles, plants, and marine organisms provide information about how life developed during this time. These fossils are found in sedimentary rock layers formed by rivers, lakes, and oceans. Each layer contains remains of organisms that live during specific intervals of time. Microscopic organisms in oceans played an important role in marine ecosystems. These organisms formed the base of food chains and supported larger marine life. Their presence influenced nutrient cycles in ocean water and contributed to carbon cycling processes. The Paleogene also saw the development of early primate-like mammals. These animals lived in forest environments and showed adaptations for climbing and grasping. Their development marked an important stage in mammal evolution, as they occupied ecological roles that required fine movement and sensory awareness in complex environments. Carnivorous mammals also began to develop more specialized feeding strategies. Some species adapted to hunting other animals, while others scavenged or fed on a mix of plant and animal material. These feeding strategies influenced their movement patterns and social behaviors. Herbivorous mammals developed teeth and digestive systems suited for plant consumption. As plant diversity increased, herbivores adapted to different types of vegetation. Some fed on soft leaves and fruits, while others adapted to tougher plant materials. These feeding differences allowed multiple herbivore groups to exist in the same regions. The oceans supported early forms of marine mammals during the later part of the Paleogene. These mammals gradually adapted to aquatic environments, developing body structures suited for swimming and feeding in water. Their presence in oceans added new layers to marine ecosystems. Climate changes during this period were influenced by natural earth processes, including volcanic activity, ocean circulation changes, and atmospheric variations. These processes affected temperature distribution across the planet. Some intervals experienced warmer conditions, while others experienced cooling trends. These shifts influenced migration and adaptation patterns in both plants and animals. The soil systems during this period developed through interactions between rocks, water, air, and living organisms. Plant roots contributed to soil formation by breaking down rock materials. Organic matter from dead plants and animals enriched soil composition. This supported plant growth and helped stabilize ecosystems. Wetland environments provided important habitats for many species. These areas supported amphibians, reptiles, birds, and a variety of plant life. Water levels in wetlands changed with rainfall and seasonal patterns, creating dynamic environments that required adaptation from living organisms. Insect-plant interactions continued to evolve. Pollination systems became more established as insects moved between flowering plants. This supported plant reproduction and contributed to genetic variation in plant populations. Seed dispersal mechanisms also developed through interactions with animals that consumed fruits and moved seeds across landscapes. The Paleogene period also saw gradual development of ecosystem structures that included producers, consumers, and decomposers. Plants acted as primary producers, converting sunlight into energy stored in organic matter. Animals acted as consumers, feeding on plants or other animals. Decomposers broke down dead material and returned nutrients to the environment. These processes maintained balance within ecosystems. Freshwater systems such as lakes and rivers supported diverse life forms. Fish species adapted to different water conditions, including temperature, oxygen levels, and flow speed. Amphibians relied on freshwater environments for reproduction and survival. Aquatic plants contributed to oxygen production and habitat formation. Forest ecosystems during this period varied depending on climate conditions. Some forests contained dense tree cover with high moisture levels, while others had more open structures with mixed vegetation. These differences influenced animal distribution and behavior. The development of new ecological roles during the Paleogene allowed ecosystems to become more structured over time. Organisms adapted to specific functions within their environments, leading to stable interactions between species. Food chains became more organized, and energy flow through ecosystems became more defined. Small mammals played a major role in many environments. Their size allowed them to occupy spaces within forests, underground systems, and ground-level habitats. They fed on a variety of food sources, including insects, plants, and small animals. Their reproductive patterns supported population growth and adaptation to changing environments. As the Paleogene continued, ecosystems became increasingly complex in structure. New species appeared and existing species adapted further to environmental conditions. Geological and climatic processes continued to shape the planet's surface, influencing the distribution of life. The Neogene period was a time in Earth's history when the environment changed in many parts of the world, and large open lands covered with grasses became more common across continents. This period followed the Paleogene period and continued the long development of modern ecosystems. During this time, grasslands spread widely across Africa, Eurasia, North America, South America, and parts of Australia. These changes happened over a very long time and were connected to slow shifts in climate, rainfall patterns, and the movement of Earth's land areas. The spread of grasslands affected soil, water systems, plant life, and especially animal life, leading to many changes in how animals lived, moved, and survived. At the beginning of the Neogene period, forests still covered large parts of the land. Many regions had warm and moist conditions that supported thick tree growth. Over time, the climate in many regions became drier in certain seasons. Rainfall became less evenly distributed in some areas, and long dry periods appeared in places that were previously covered by dense forests. These changes allowed grasses, which can survive dry conditions and grow quickly after rainfall, to spread across open land. Grasses also adapted well to areas with frequent disturbances such as fire, grazing, and seasonal drought. As a result, large stretches of land began to shift from forest cover to open grassy landscapes. Grasslands expanded across many continents in different forms. In Africa, wide open plains developed in several regions, especially in eastern and southern areas. These spaces supported grasses that could grow under strong sunlight and survive periods of low water availability. In Eurasia, large interior regions developed extensive grass-covered land due to reduced forest density in some zones. North America also experienced the spread of grass-dominated ecosystems across central regions, where forests gave way to open plains. In South America, grasslands developed in parts of the southern regions and interior lowlands. In Australia, open grassy areas became more widespread in regions where rainfall patterns changed and supported dry adapted vegetation. The spread of grasslands was not a sudden event. It took place through many small environmental changes over long periods of time. Soil conditions gradually shifted as grasses spread their roots and changed the structure of the ground. Grass roots helped bind soil particles which influenced water flow in the land. In many places, grasses replaced trees that required more constant moisture, allowing open land to remain stable for long periods. Seasonal dry and wet cycles became more important in shaping how vegetation grew and survived. Grasses developed features that made them well suited for these changing conditions. Their growth points are close to the ground, which allowed them to recover after being grazed or damaged. Their seeds could spread through wind, water, and animals, allowing them to reach new areas. Some grasses developed strong underground systems that stored energy and nutrients, helping them survive dry periods and regrow when conditions improved. These features helped grasses become dominant in many open environments during the Neogene period. As grasslands expanded, they changed the structure of ecosystems across continents. Forest-dwelling animals began to experience different environmental conditions in many regions. Open land created new spaces where visibility was higher and movement was easier across wide areas. Animals that lived in these environments had to adapt to different sources of food, new movement patterns, and new ways of avoiding predators. The types of plants available for food shifted from leaves, fruits, and forest vegetation to grasses and low-growing plants. Herbivorous animals that fed on plants experienced major changes during this time. Many developed teeth that were better suited for grinding tough plant material. Found in grasses. Grass contains high levels of silica, which can cause wear on teeth over time. Animals adapted by developing stronger teeth and different chewing patterns that allowed them to process grass efficiently. Digestive systems also changed in many species. Some animals developed longer digestive tracts that helped break down tough plant fibers and extract nutrients more effectively. Body structures of many animals also changed in response to life in open grasslands. Some animals developed longer limbs that supported sustained movement across large open spaces. This allowed them to travel longer distances in search of food and water. Movement became an important part of survival in environments where resources were spread across wide areas. Some species developed greater endurance for long-distance travel across open land. Others developed body shapes that supported quick movement across flat terrain. Predatory animals also changed during this period. Open grasslands provided fewer places for hiding, which influenced hunting behavior. Some predators developed abilities to move efficiently over long distances in pursuit of prey. Vision became an important sense in open environments, where spotting movement from a distance was necessary. Hunting strategies began to adapt to open terrain, where encounters between predators and prey often occurred across visible spaces rather than hidden surroundings. The spread of grasslands also influenced social behavior in some animal groups. Living in open spaces encouraged some species to form groups that could help with detecting danger. Group living also helped with finding food and protecting young animals. Communication between animals became important in maintaining group structure and coordination. Sound, movement signals, and other forms of communication supported survival in environments where visibility was high. Insects and smaller animals also experienced changes due to grassland expansion. Many insect species adapted to feeding on grasses or living among grass stems. Some developed life cycles that matched seasonal changes in grass growth. Small mammals found new habitats in grass-covered areas, where they could build burrows or move through dense grass cover. These changes increased diversity in many ecosystems. Soil organisms also played an important role during this time. As grasslands expanded, soil became an active environment filled with roots, microbes, and decomposing plant material. Grass roots added organic matter to the soil when they died and regrew. This helped create soil systems that supported continuous plant growth. Earthworms and other small organisms contributed to soil mixing and nutrient cycling, which supported the growth of grasses across large regions. Water systems were also affected by the expansion of grasslands. In many areas, water runoff patterns changed because grasses influenced how rainwater moved through the soil. Grass-covered land often allowed water to seep into the ground more easily in some regions, supporting underground water storage. Rivers and streams adjusted to changing landscapes, and sediment movement patterns shifted in response to vegetation changes. Climate conditions during the Neogene period continued to vary across different regions. Some areas experienced cooler and drier conditions that supported grassland expansion. Other regions maintained warmer and wetter conditions that still supported forest growth. This mix of environments created a wide range of habitats across the planet. Seasonal changes became more important in many regions, influencing plant growth cycles and animal behavior. The spread of grasslands also influenced migration patterns of animals. Many species moved across continents in search of suitable environments. Land connections between continents allowed animals to spread into new regions. As they moved, they encountered new plant types and different environmental conditions. This led to changes in feeding behavior, reproduction, and survival strategies. Over time, populations in different regions developed unique adaptations based on local conditions. Plant life in grasslands also showed diversity. Not all grasses were the same. Some grew tall and formed dense fields, while others stayed low and spread close to the ground. Different types of grasses adapted to different soil conditions, rainfall levels, and seasonal patterns. Other plants also grew alongside grasses, including shrubs and small flowering plants that adapted to open environments. These plants contributed to the overall structure of grassland ecosystems. Fire also played a role in shaping grasslands during this time. In some regions, dry conditions allowed fires to occur naturally. Grasses were able to recover quickly after fire events due to their growth structure. This allowed grasslands to remain stable in areas where fires happened regularly. Trees, which often require longer recovery times, became less dominant in such regions. Fire patterns helped maintain open landscapes in many parts of the world. The Neogene period also saw continued changes in ocean conditions, which indirectly influenced land environments. Ocean temperatures and currents affected rainfall patterns on land. These changes influenced where grasslands could develop and where forests remained stable. The interaction between ocean systems and land climate played a role in shaping global vegetation patterns. Animal diversity increased in many grassland regions. New species emerged that were adapted to open environments. Some developed specialized feeding habits focused on grasses, while others adapted to hunting in open land. The interaction between herbivores and predators became a central part of grassland ecosystems. Movement, speed, endurance, and sensory abilities became important features for survival. The structure of ecosystems became more dynamic in grassland regions. Plants, animals, soil, water, and climate all interacted in continuous cycles. Grass growth depended on rainfall and soil nutrients. Herbivores depended on grass availability. Predators depended on herbivores. Each part of the system influenced the others through continuous natural processes. In some regions, grasslands formed large, continuous stretches of land that supported wide-ranging animal movement. In other regions, grasslands appeared in patches, separated by forests or other vegetation types. This variation created different ecological conditions across continents. Animals adapted to local environments, leading to many forms of diversity within similar types of ecosystems. The development of grasslands also influenced the timing of biological activities. Many plants and animals adjusted their life cycles to seasonal changes. Growth, reproduction, and movement patterns often followed cycles of rainfall and dryness. These cycles became important in maintaining ecosystem stability and supporting life across grassland regions. As the Neogene period continued, grasslands became an important part of Earth's land surface in many regions. Their expansion influenced plant evolution, animal adaptation, soil development, water systems, and climate interactions. The Pleistocene time period was a long span in Earth's history marked by repeated changes in climate and large shifts in living creatures across many regions of the world. During this time, very large mammals lived in different environments across land areas that included parts of Africa, Europe, Asia, North America, South America, and regions close to the Arctic. These large mammals are often called Pleistocene megafauna. They included mammoths and saber-toothed cats, along with many other large plant-eating and meat-eating animals. Their bodies were adapted to the environmental conditions of that time in Mayu, and their daily activities were shaped by food availability, climate changes, and seasonal changes in temperature and vegetation. Mammoths were large elephant-like mammals with thick bodies covered in dense hair in many species. They had long curved tusks made of ivory that extended from the upper jaw. These tusks were used for multiple functions, including digging through snow or frozen ground to reach plants, stripping bark from trees, and interacting with other mammoths during social behavior. The head of a mammoth was large, and its trunk was strong and flexible, allowing it to collect food, drink water, and move objects. The legs were thick and strong, supporting a heavy body mass that required constant intake of plant material to maintain energy levels. Mammoths lived in groups that included adults and younger individuals. These groups moved across wide areas in search of food sources that changed with seasons and climate shifts. The environments where mammoths lived included cold regions with long periods of low temperature, as well as areas with open vegetation. These regions had grasses, shrubs, moss, and other low-growing plants that could survive in cold conditions. The ground in many of these areas was frozen for long periods of the year, and only the top layer of soil would thaw during warmer seasons. Mammoths adapted to these conditions by developing thick layers of fat beneath their skin that helped maintain internal body temperature. Their skin was also covered with long hair that reduced heat loss. Their feeding habits involved continuous grazing of available plants, and they needed large quantities of vegetation to sustain their energy requirements. Mammoths also lived in areas where climate conditions changed over time. During warmer periods, some populations moved into regions with more trees and mixed vegetation. In these environments, they still depended on a variety of plant material, including leaves, bark, grasses, and shrubs. Seasonal movement was part of their behavior, as they followed the availability of food sources. These movements often covered long distances over land areas that were connected during the Pleistocene due to lower sea levels in some regions. The ability to move across these connected land areas allowed mammoth populations to spread widely. The social behavior of mammoths involved structured group living. Groups included adult females, their offspring, and younger males. Older males often lived separately or moved between groups during different stages of life. Communication within groups was important for maintaining coordination during movement and for protecting younger members. Vocal sounds, body movements, and trunk gestures were used for communication. The care of young mammoths involved protection and guidance during feeding and movement across land. Saber-toothed cats were another important group of Pleistocene megafauna. These animals were large carnivorous mammals with long upper canine teeth that extended downward when the mouth was closed. These teeth were strong and shaped for gripping and holding prey. The body of saber-toothed cats was muscular, with strong forelimbs used for capturing and holding animals. Their jaws were capable of opening widely to allow the long canine teeth to be used effectively during hunting. The environment where saber-toothed cats lived included open grasslands, wooded areas, and regions where large herbivorous animals were present. These environments supported populations of grazing mammals that served as food sources for carnivores. Saber-toothed cats often used stealth and short bursts of movement to approach prey animals. Their hunting behavior involved waiting and observing before making a sudden movement to capture prey. After capturing an animal, the long canine teeth were used to deliver a controlled bite that could reduce movement of the prey. Saber-toothed cats lived in different regions across the world during the Pleistocene. Some species lived in North and South America, while others existed in parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Their presence in these regions depended on available prey populations and environmental conditions that supported large herbivores. These carnivores needed steady access to food sources that could support their energy demands. Their survival depended on hunting success and the stability of prey populations. The body structure of saber-toothed cats included strong muscles in the neck and shoulders, which supported the use of their large canine teeth. Their legs were built for short bursts of movement rather than long-distance running. Their claws were sharp and retractable in many species, allowing them to grip surfaces and hold prey animals during the hunting. Their senses, including vision and smell, were important for detecting movement and locating potential prey in their surroundings. Other megafauna of the Pleistocene included large herbivorous animals such as giant ground sloths, large bison, woolly rhinoceros, and other large grazing mammals. These animals occupied different regions and contributed to the structure of ecosystems during this time. They played a role in shaping vegetation patterns through feeding behavior and movement across landscapes. Their feeding activities involved grazing on grasses, browsing on shrubs, and in some cases feeding on tree bark and other plant materials. The environments of the Pleistocene included repeated changes in temperature and moisture levels over long periods of time. These changes affected the distribution of plants and animals. During colder phases, large areas were covered with open vegetation and frozen ground conditions. During warmer phases, forests expanded into areas that were previously open land. These changes influenced the movement and survival of megafauna populations. Animals had to adjust their feeding patterns and movement routes based on available resources. Water sources such as rivers, lakes, and seasonal meltwater areas were important parts of these environments. Many megafauna species depended on these water sources for drinking and for attracting plant growth that supported feeding. Movement patterns of animals often followed water availability. Areas near water sources supported higher concentrations of both herbivores and carnivores, leading to frequent interactions among species. Mammoths often interacted with other herbivores in shared feeding areas. These interactions included competition for plant resources, especially during times when vegetation was limited. Herd movement patterns allowed mammoths to access different feeding areas while reducing pressure on any single location. Younger mammoths learned feeding routes and survival behavior from older members of the group, and this knowledge transfer was important for maintaining population stability. Saber-toothed cats interacted with a variety of prey species, and their hunting behavior was closely linked to the movement of herbivores. They often selected weaker or isolated individuals from groups of grazing animals. After a successful hunt, feeding behavior involved careful use of the teeth and jaw to process meat. These carnivores needed to feed regularly, and hunting success influenced survival and reproduction. The Pleistocene environments also included open plains, river valleys, and areas with mixed vegetation types. These environments supported a wide range of life forms, and megafauna species moved through these areas based on seasonal conditions. Some regions provided more stable conditions, while others changed frequently due to climate shifts. Animal populations adjusted their movement and feeding behavior in response to these conditions. Reproduction among mammoths involved long gestation periods and the birth of a single offspring in most cases. Young mammoths required extended care from adult members of the group. Growth into adulthood took many years, and survival depended on protection and access to food. Learning behavior in young mammoths included following group movement and observing feeding behavior. Saber-toothed cats reproduced through mating behaviors that led to the birth of small litters of young. These young were dependent on parental care for feeding and protection during early stages of life. Growth included development of muscle strength, coordination, and hunting skills. Learning to hunt involved observation and practice, and young individuals gradually developed independent hunting ability over time. The presence of large mammals during the Pleistocene influenced vegetation patterns across regions. Feeding by herbivores affected plant growth and distribution. Grazing activity maintained open areas in many regions, while browsing activity affected tree and shrub growth. Movement of animals also contributed to the spread of plant material through seeds attached to fur or through digestive processes. Carnivores such as saber-toothed cats influenced herbivore behavior. The presence of predators affected movement patterns of prey animals, leading to group formation and coordinated movement. Herbivores often remained in groups as a response to predation pressure. This group behavior provided protection for younger individuals and reduced vulnerability during feeding. The physical structure of Pleistocene megafauna required large amounts of food intake. Mammoths consumed large quantities of plant material daily to support body functions. Their digestive systems were adapted to process fibrous plant material. Continuous feeding behavior was necessary to maintain energy balance. Seasonal changes in food availability required adjustments in feeding patterns and movement distances. Saber-toothed cats required regular access to meat-based food sources. Energy intake depended on successful hunting events. Between hunts, these carnivores rested and conserved energy. Their survival depended on balancing energy use with successful feeding events. Hunting behavior required coordination of movement, timing, and use of physical strength. The landscapes where these animals lived included areas shaped by ice expansion and retreat in some regions. These environmental changes influenced landforms, water distribution, and vegetation types. As ice moved and receded, new areas became available for colonization by plants and animals. Megafauna populations expanded into newly available regions when conditions allowed plant growth. Some regions contained long stretches of open land that supported movement of large herbivores, These movement routes were used repeatedly over time as animals traveled between feeding and water sources. Carnivores followed these movement patterns in search of prey. The relationship between movement and resource availability shaped daily and seasonal behavior of many species. The skeletal structure of mammoths included large bones that supported heavy body mass. The skull contained large attachment points for muscles used in trunk movement and chewing. Teeth were adapted for grinding plant material, and tooth-wear patterns reflected long-term feeding behavior. As teeth wore down, new teeth developed to replace them over time. Saber-toothed cats had skull structures that supported large canine teeth and strong jaw muscles. Their teeth were not designed for grinding but for gripping and cutting. The structure of their limbs supported powerful forward movement and gripping ability during hunting. Bone structure indicates strong muscle attachment areas used in movement and predation. The Pleistocene megafauna existed in ecosystems that included many interactions between species. These interactions included feeding relationships, movement patterns, and shared use of resources such as water and vegetation. The presence of large mammals influenced the distribution of smaller animals and plant communities. Continuous movement of megafauna across landscapes created patterns of resource use that changed over time as environmental conditions shifted. Animal behavior during this period was closely linked to survival needs, including feeding, reproduction, and protection from environmental conditions. Mammoths and saber-toothed cats represented two major groups of megafauna that occupied different roles within these ecosystems. Their existence was supported by the availability of food sources and suitable environmental conditions across large geographic regions. The earliest stage in the evolution of primates began with small living creatures that appeared many millions of years ago during a time when Earth was covered with dense forests in many regions. These early forms did not look exactly like modern primates such as monkeys, apes, or humans, but they carried certain body features and behaviors that later became important in primate evolution. Their bodies were generally small, and they moved through environments where trees were a major part of daily life. Their survival depended on movement, feeding, and sensing danger in environments where branches, leaves, and forest floors formed their living space. These early primate-like creatures were part of a broader group of mammals that were adapting to changing ecological conditions after the disappearance of large reptile groups that once dominated many ecosystems. Over long periods, small changes in body structure and behavior accumulated, shaping new forms that became more specialized for life in wooded environments. The first primate-like creatures had traits that set them apart from other early mammals. Their hands and feet began to show features that allowed grasping. Fingers and toes developed flexibility that helped them hold onto surfaces, such as branches and trunks. The nails on some of their digits started replacing claw-like structures, allowing the tips of the fingers to have more sensitive contact with objects. This sensitivity supported careful movement and helped in finding food items such as insects, fruits, and leaves. Their eyes gradually moved toward the front of the face, creating a visual field that allowed both eyes to focus on the same object. This feature supported depth perception, which helped in judging distances when moving among elevated surfaces. Their brains also began to show changes in structure, supporting better coordination between senses and movement. These early forms lived in environments where trees were a major source of food, shelter, and protection. The forest canopy and lower branches provided many places where insects could be found, fruits could be accessed, and small animals could be hunted. Movement through these spaces required careful balance and controlled motion. The limbs of these creatures became adapted for holding and releasing surfaces in a repeated pattern of movement. The joints in their shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees and ankles allowed a wide range of motion that supported climbing and moving across uneven surfaces. Their tails, when present, sometimes helped with balance during movement, especially when navigating narrow or unstable supports. The early primate-like creatures also developed sensory abilities that supported survival in their environments. Vision became an important sense, especially in low light conditions found under dense foliage. Their eyes became more capable of detecting movement and identifying shapes and forms among branches and leaves. Hearing also played a role in detecting movement of other animals nearby. Their sense of smell remained important for locating food and identifying environmental cues, although in some later forms of primate evolution, vision became more dominant compared to smell. These sensory changes did not happen quickly but developed gradually through many generations of small biological changes. As time continued, the bodies of these early primate-like creatures became more suited for movement in trees. Their skeletal structures became lighter in certain areas, allowing easier movement among branches. Their limbs became more proportioned for reaching and gripping rather than only for walking on flat ground. The flexibility of their spine allowed bending and turning in multiple directions, supporting movement across complex environments. Their fingers and toes developed stronger gripping ability, with muscles that allowed precise control of movement. These adaptations helped them move from one support point to another in a controlled way. Their diets also influenced their evolution. Many of these early primate-like creatures fed on fruits, leaves, insects, and small animals. The ability to pick small food items from branches required fine control of hand movements. Teeth structure began to reflect a mixed diet, with some teeth suited for tearing plant material and others suited for processing small animal prey. Jaw muscles developed in ways that allowed chewing of different food types. The ability to process varied diets supported survival in environments where food availability changed with seasons and location. The development of these early primate-like creatures was closely connected to changes in Earth's climate and ecosystems. Forested areas expanded and shifted over long periods, creating new ecological zones. These changes created opportunities for small mammals to explore different living spaces. Some groups remained on the ground, while others began to use elevated spaces more frequently. The ones that spent more time in trees developed physical traits that supported climbing, grasping, and balancing. Over time, these traits became more pronounced in certain populations, leading to clearer differences between ground-dwelling mammals and those that lived primarily in wooded environments. The early stages of primate evolution also involved changes in reproduction and social behavior. Many of these creatures gave birth to small numbers of offspring at a time, which allowed more energy and attention to be given to each young individual. The young were often dependent on parental care for extended periods, learning how to move, find food, and avoid danger through observation and practice. This extended development period supported the growth of complex behaviors. Social interactions among individuals became important in some groups, especially in situations where food resources were shared or where group movement provided safety. The brain size of early primate-like creatures gradually increased relative to body size. This increase supported improved memory, learning ability, and coordination. The ability to remember locations of food sources, recognize patterns in the environment, and respond to changes in surroundings provided advantages in survival. Neural connections in the brain became more complex, supporting communication between sensory input and physical response. These changes were not sudden but occurred over long periods through small modifications passed from one generation to another. The structure of the hands remained one of the most important features in primate evolution. The presence of opposable digits in some early forms allowed better control when holding objects. This ability made it possible to grasp branches securely and to manipulate food items with precision. The sensitivity of fingertips increased due to the development of nerve endings that allowed detection of texture and pressure. These features supported careful interaction with the environment, especially in situations where precise movement was necessary. The feet of early primate-like creatures also changed in ways that supported climbing. In some species, the big toe became more flexible and able to oppose other toes, helping in gripping surfaces. The soles of the feet developed sensitivity that supported balance and movement on uneven surfaces. These adaptations made movement in elevated environments more stable and controlled. The combination of hand and foot flexibility allowed coordinated movement across complex structures. The early primate-like creatures also showed changes in posture and movement style. Their bodies were able to shift between different positions, including climbing, hanging, and standing on branches. The ability to rotate limbs in multiple directions supported movement across different angles and directions. Their shoulder joints allowed a wide range of motion that supported reaching upward, sideways, and downward without losing balance. These physical features supported continuous movement in environments where stable ground surfaces were not always available. The development of vision played a central role in their evolution. The forward placement of eyes allowed overlapping fields of vision, which supported depth perception. This ability was important for judging the distance between branches and for coordinating jumps or steps across gaps. The structure of the retina in some early forms became more specialized for detecting light variations, which supported activity during different times of day. These visual changes improved awareness of surroundings and helped in detecting both food sources and potential threats. The environment in which these early primate-like creatures lived was filled with diverse plant life. Trees provided not only movement pathways, but also food sources and resting places. The structure of forests created multiple layers, including ground-level, mid-level branches, and upper canopy areas. These layers supported different types of movement and feeding behavior. Some individuals spent more time closer to the ground, while others used higher levels more frequently. This variation in movement patterns supported diversity in physical traits within early primate populations. The digestive systems of these creatures adapted to handle different types of food. The ability to process both plant and animal matter allowed flexibility in diet. Enzymes in the digestive tract became suited for breaking down sugars found in fruits and structural materials found in leaves. Protein digestion supported energy needs from insect and small animal consumption. This dietary flexibility supported survival in environments where food availability changed with time and location. Over long periods, populations of early primate-like creatures spread across different regions where forest environments were present. Geographic separation of groups led to variations in physical traits and behavior. These variations accumulated gradually, leading to the emergence of distinct forms that shared common ancestral features, but developed different adaptations based on local conditions. Movement between areas allowed some genetic exchange between populations, while isolated groups developed more distinct characteristics. The limbs of these creatures became increasingly specialized for coordinated movement. Muscles controlling fine movements in fingers and toes became more developed. Tendons and ligaments provided support for repeated gripping actions. The coordination between visual input and limb movement became more refined, allowing precise timing during movement through complex environments. This coordination supported activities such as reaching for food, avoiding obstacles, and maintaining balance during motion. The early primate-like creatures also developed behavioral patterns that supported survival in complex environments. They became more aware of their surroundings and responded quickly to movement or changes in light and sound. Resting behavior often involved secure positions in elevated areas where safety from ground-based threats was increased. Feeding behavior involved careful selection of food items based on availability and nutritional value. These behaviors were supported by increasing cognitive ability and sensory integration. The skeletal structure of the skull changed over time to accommodate increasing brain size and sensory development. The shape of the skull adjusted to allow space for expanded brain regions associated with vision, coordination, and memory. The facial structure also changed, with reduced snout length in some lineages, allowing more space for forward-facing eyes. These changes supported improved sensory processing and environmental interaction. The reproductive cycle of these creatures involved stages of development where young individuals learned essential survival skills from adults. The extended period of growth allowed gradual development of physical strength and coordination. Learning through observation and repeated practice became important for survival in environments that required precise movement and awareness. Parental care ensured that young individuals had protection and guidance during early stages of life. The movement patterns of early primate-like creatures included climbing, jumping, and controlled walking along branches. The ability to shift weight between limbs supported stability during movement. Their tails, when present, sometimes assisted in balancing body weight during motion. Coordination between limbs allowed smooth transitions between different positions. These movement abilities were essential for navigating environments where surfaces were irregular and constantly changing. The development of grasping ability in hands and feet represented a significant feature in their evolution. The opposable structure of digits allowed secure holding of surfaces. This ability reduced the risk of falling and allowed movement across elevated environments. The strength of grip increased through muscle development and repeated use. The combination of flexibility and strength supported a wide range of movements. The early primate-like creatures also developed patterns of rest and activity that aligned with environmental conditions. Activity periods often occurred during times when food sources were available and environmental conditions were suitable for movement. Rest periods allowed recovery of energy and maintenance of bodily functions. Sleeping positions often involved secure locations where safety was maintained during inactivity. The sensory integration in these creatures allowed coordination between sight, sound, and touch. Information from multiple senses was combined in the brain to create a response to environmental conditions. This integration supported quick reactions to changes in surroundings. The ability to process multiple sensory inputs at once improved navigation through complex environments. Over extended periods, the gradual accumulation of physical and behavioral changes resulted in forms that showed clearer primate characteristics. These included improved vision, grasping ability, flexible movement, and increased brain development. The continuation of these changes across many generations led to further specialization in tree-dwelling lifestyles and the expansion of primate diversity across different regions of the world. After the extinction event that removed non-avian dinosaurs from Earth, the living world entered a long period of rebuilding, in which mammals gradually became more visible in many environments. During the early part of the Cenozoic Era, ecosystems changed in structure as vegetation, climate, and animal life shifted into new patterns. Over millions of years, mammals increased in diversity and began to occupy many ecological roles that had previously perhaps been held by large reptiles. This process did not happen quickly, and it involved many separate groups of mammals developing in different regions of the world. Some of these mammals remained small and lived in forests and dense vegetation, while others grew into very large forms that moved across open land, wetlands, and river systems. These large mammals appeared in several lineages, and they showed a wide range of body shapes, feeding habits, and ways of living. In the early part of this era, the Paleocene period began shortly after the extinction event. Mammals at this time were already present, but they were mostly small to medium in body size. As time passed, plant life became more varied, and forests expanded in many regions. This created many feeding opportunities. Some mammals began to specialize in eating leaves, while others fed on soft plants, fruits, roots, and smaller animals. Over long stretches of time, certain mammal groups developed stronger limbs, larger bodies, and more powerful jaws. These changes allowed them to access new food sources and move through different environments. By the later part of the Paleocene period, several mammal groups had already started to grow into large forms that would later become even more prominent in the Eocene period. During the Eocene period, Earth experienced warm climates in many regions, and forests extended over wide areas. In this environment, mammals diversified into many forms. Some of the most notable large mammals of this time belonged to early groups of herbivores that lived in forested and semi-open landscapes. One of these groups included Uintatherium, a large animal with a heavy body and a strong skull. It had thick limbs that supported its weight, and its head carried several bony structures on the skull. Its teeth were adapted for processing plant material, and its jaw structure allowed it to break down tough vegetation. Uintatherium lived in North America and was part of a group of mammals that developed strong body structures during this time. Another important group of large mammals from the Eocene includes early relatives of modern rhinoceros-like animals. These animals were part of a broad group of perissodactyl mammals, which included species that walked on hooved feet. One example from this group is Brontotherium, also known in scientific records as Megacerops. This animal had a large body supported by strong legs. Its skull carried a pair of horn-like structures made of bone. These structures were not used for the same purposes in all individuals, but they were part of the body form that developed in this lineage. Megacerops lived in environments that included forests and open woodlands, where it moved while feeding on plant material. Its teeth were shaped for grinding leaves and stems, and its digestive system was adapted to process large amounts of vegetation. In the same period, another group of mammals developed into large carnivorous forms. One of the most notable was Andrewsarchus, an animal known from skull remains discovered in Central Asia. Its skull was long and massive with strong jaws and large teeth. The shape of its teeth suggests it was capable of processing meat and possibly other types of food sources available in its environment. The full body form of Andrewsarchus is not completely known, but its skull size indicates that it was one of the largest predatory mammals of its time. It lived in environments that included river systems, floodplains, and forested areas where different kinds of prey animals were present. Another group of mammals that developed large forms during the Eocene includes early whales. These mammals began their evolution in land environments, but gradually adapted to aquatic life. One important example is Basilosaurus, which lived in ocean waters during the late Eocene. Basilosaurus had a long body that moved through water using undulating motion. Its skull contained sharp teeth that were used for catching fish and other marine animals. Its limbs were reduced in size compared to land mammals, showing adaptation to aquatic movement. Fossils of Basilosaurus have been found in regions that were once covered by shallow seas, showing that large marine mammals were already established during this period of Earth history. Alongside these groups, another early mammal form known as Moeritherium appeared during the Eocene. This animal lived in wetland environments and had a body shape that supported movement through shallow water and soft ground. It had a short trunk-like extension of the nose, and its teeth show early development of features that would later appear in larger elephant-related animals. Moeritherium fed on plants in swampy environments and moved slowly through areas with water and dense vegetation. Its body structure reflects adaptation to semi-aquatic life, and it represents an early stage in the development of large proboscidean mammals. During this same broad time period, some mammals developed into large browsing herbivores that lived in forested regions. These animals fed on leaves, stems, and other plant materials that were available in their habitats. Their teeth were often shaped with ridges and flat surfaces for grinding plant matter. Their skulls and neck structures supported feeding at different heights within vegetation layers. These mammals played roles in shaping plant growth patterns by feeding on various parts of trees and shrubs. Their movement through forest environments influenced soil structure and plant distribution in different regions. As the Eocene period continued, ecosystems became more complex. Different regions of the world supported different groups of mammals, and some lineages developed into very large body forms. These large mammals required significant amounts of food, which influenced their daily movement patterns and feeding behavior. They spent time moving across land areas, along river valleys, and through forest margins in search of plant material or animal prey. Their skeletal structures show strong limb bones and reinforced joints that supported their body weight during movement. In the transition into the Oligocene period, climate conditions changed in many parts of the world. Some regions became cooler and drier, and forests began to change in structure. Despite these changes, large mammals continued to exist and develop. One of the most well-known large mammals of this later period is Paraceratherium, an extremely large hornless rhinoceros-related mammal that lived in Asia. It had a long neck and long limbs that supported its body structure. Its skull was elongated, and it had teeth adapted for feeding on leaves from tall vegetation. Paraceratherium moved through forested areas and open woodland environments, feeding on a wide range of plant material. Fossil evidence shows that it existed across a wide geographical range and occupied different habitats during its existence. Other large mammals of the early Cenozoic included various ungulate groups that developed heavy bodies and specialized teeth. These animals often had strong chewing surfaces on their molars, allowing them to process tough vegetation. Their limbs ended in hoofed structures that supported movement across land surfaces. Some of these mammals developed thick skin and reinforced skull structures that may have been used in interactions with others of their kind. Their fossils have been discovered in multiple continents, showing that large mammal forms were not restricted to a single region. In addition to herbivorous and carnivorous mammals, there were also omnivorous species that developed large bodies. These mammals consumed a mixture of plant and animal food sources depending on availability. Their teeth showed mixed structures, with some adapted for grinding plant material and others for processing animal matter. Their digestive systems were flexible enough to handle different types of food intake. These mammals moved across varied environments and adapted to changing ecological conditions. Large birds also appeared during the early Cenozoic and occupied some of the roles left open after the extinction event. One example is Gastornis, a large flightless bird that lived in forested environments. It had a heavy body and strong legs that supported walking on land. Its beak was large and strong, and its skull structure suggests it could process a variety of food sources depending on availability. Fossils of Gastornis have been found in North America and Europe, showing a wide distribution across land areas that were connected or close during that time. The early Cenozoic world contained many wetlands, river systems, forest basins, and coastal regions that supported these large mammals. In wetland environments, semi-aquatic mammals moved through shallow water and soft ground, while feeding on plants and small animals. In forested regions, large herbivores moved through dense vegetation, feeding on leaves and stems. In open environments, large mammals moved across wide land areas, searching for food sources that changed with seasonal patterns. Marine environments supported early whales and other aquatic mammals that had already developed strong swimming abilities and feeding adaptations. The skeletal structures of these large mammals show strong limb bones, reinforced joints, and large skulls adapted for feeding and survival in their environments. Their teeth vary widely, reflecting different feeding habits, from grinding plant matter to slicing animal tissue. Their reproductive strategies allowed populations to continue over long periods of time, even as environmental conditions changed. Fossil evidence shows that these mammals existed across long stretches of time during the early Cenozoic, with some lineages persisting while others disappeared and were replaced by new forms. In river systems, large mammals often moved along water edges where vegetation was abundant. These areas provided access to plant food and water sources. In forest interiors, mammals moved through shaded environments where food sources varied depending on plant type and growth stage. In open landscapes, movement patterns covered long distances as animals searched for feeding areas. These patterns influenced the distribution of plant life and the structure of ecosystems across different regions. The development of large body size in mammals during the early Cenozoic involved changes in bone structure, muscle attachment, and energy use. These animals required large amounts of food intake to maintain their body functions. Their digestive systems were expanded in structure, allowing them to process large quantities of plant material or animal tissue. Their sensory systems, including smell, hearing, and vision, supported navigation and feeding in different environments. Over time, these large mammals became part of complex ecosystems that included smaller mammals, reptiles, birds, amphibians, and insects. Each group interacted with the environment in different ways. Large mammals influenced vegetation through feeding, movement, and habitat use. Their presence affected the structure of plant communities and the distribution of other animals in their surroundings. Fossil records from many continents show the spread of these mammals across land connections that existed during the early Cenozoic. Their remains have been found in sediment layers that formed in rivers, lakes, forests, and coastal regions. These fossils include bones, teeth, and occasionally complete skeletons that provide detailed information about their body structure and life habits. The study of these remains reveals a wide diversity of forms and adaptations that developed during this long period of Earth history. The early Cenozoic era contained a wide range of environments that supported the growth and expansion of mammals into large forms. These mammals developed in many separate lineages and occupied different ecological roles across land and water systems. Their presence is recorded in fossil deposits from many parts of the world, showing a broad distribution of large-bodied mammals and other large animals during this time. Plate tectonics during the Cenozoic Era describes the movement and behavior of Earth's outer rocky layer after the extinction event that removed non-avian dinosaurs and many other life forms. This time spans from about 66 million years ago to the present time. During this long interval, Earth's surface continued to be divided into large and small plates that slowly moved over the softer layer beneath them. These movements shaped oceans, mountain systems, volcanic zones, and the arrangement of continents that are present today. The motion of plates during this interval involved gradual drifting, collision, separation, and sliding along fracture zones, all driven by heat from deep inside Earth that caused convection in the mantle. The surface plates were not fixed and continued to adjust their positions over millions of years, changing the arrangement of land and sea. At the beginning of this interval, the continents already had a pattern different from earlier geological times, but they were still far from their present positions. The Atlantic Ocean was already open, formed earlier during the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea. During the Cenozoic Era, the Atlantic continued to widen as seafloor spreading occurred along the mid-ocean ridge system. Magma rose from beneath the ocean floor at the ridge, cooled and formed new crust. This new crust slowly moved away from the ridge on both sides, pushing the Americas farther from Europe and Africa over extremely long periods. The movement was steady and persistent, producing continuous changes in ocean basin width. The western edge of the Atlantic basin experienced ongoing adjustments, where oceanic crust interacted with continental margins, leading to zones of earthquakes and volcanic activity in certain regions. The Pacific Ocean basin experienced a different pattern of plate activity. Much of its margin consisted of subduction zones, where oceanic plates descended beneath continental plates or other oceanic plates. This process created deep ocean trenches and volcanic arcs. Along the western edge of the Americas, the oceanic plates of the Pacific region moved beneath the continental plates of North America and South America. This subduction produced volcanic mountain chains and frequent seismic activity. The process also recycled oceanic crust back into the mantle. Large sections of the Pacific plate system moved in different directions, creating complex interactions at boundaries where multiple plates met. On the eastern side of the Pacific region, the western edge of North America experienced long-lasting tectonic activity that shaped mountain ranges and fault systems. The movement of the Farallon Plate beneath North America played a major role in shaping much of western North America. As this plate moved beneath the continent, it broke into smaller fragments over time, and these fragments continued to descend into the mantle. The process produced volcanic activity inland and along coastal regions, forming large igneous provinces and mountain belts. Over time, the nature of the boundary changed in many places, from subduction to transform motion, where plates slide horizontally past each other. This type of movement created major fault zones that accommodated lateral displacement of crustal blocks. During the same interval, the Indian Plate continued its long northward motion after separating from the ancient landmass of Gondwana. This plate moved across the Tethys Ocean, a body of water that once separated India from Eurasia. Over millions of years, the ocean floor between India and Eurasia was gradually consumed by subduction. Eventually, the Indian Plate collided with the Eurasian Plate. This collision produced intense crustal deformation, thickening of the crust, and uplift of one of the most extensive mountain systems on Earth. The crust in this region was compressed, folded and pushed upward over a very long period. The process continued through the Cenozoic Era, with ongoing uplift and adjustment of the crust. Large sedimentary basins formed in adjacent areas due to the accumulation of material eroded from the rising terrain. The collision between India and Eurasia also influenced regions far beyond the immediate impact zone. Stress from the collision was distributed across large areas of Asia, affecting the formation of mountain belts and plateau regions. The crust in Central Asia experienced deformation that led to the development of elevated regions and fault systems. The Tibetan region underwent sustained uplift due to crustal thickening and continued convergence of plates. This uplift affected river systems and atmospheric circulation patterns over time, as high terrain altered the movement of air masses and the direction of water flow across the continent. To the west of the Indian plate, the Arabian plate also experienced significant motion during the Cenozoic Era. This plate moved away from the African plate, creating a rift that gradually opened into the Red Sea. As the plates separated, magma rose to fill the gap, forming new oceanic crust. This process continued to widen the Red Sea region and contributed to volcanic activity along its margins. The separation also influenced the formation of the Gulf of Aden, where similar processes of seafloor spreading occurred. On land, the separation between Africa and Arabia contributed to the formation of rift systems that extended into northeastern Africa. The African continent itself experienced internal deformation in several regions during this time. One of the most significant features that developed was the East African Rift System. This system consists of a series of elongated valleys formed by the stretching and thinning of the continental crust. As the crust was pulled apart, it fractured and sank in some areas, creating deep basins. Volcanic activity occurred in many parts of the rift due to the rise of magma from below. Lakes formed in some of the basins created by this rifting process. The rift system extended over a large distance across eastern Africa and continued to develop over millions of years. In South America, the western margin experienced ongoing subduction of the oceanic crust beneath the continental plate. This process was responsible for the development and continued uplift of a long mountain chain along the western edge of the continent. The subduction zone generated volcanic activity, earthquakes, and crustal deformation. The descending oceanic plate interacted with the mantle, producing magma that rose to form volcanic structures. Sediments accumulated in basins formed by tectonic forces, and erosion of high areas contributed additional material to these basins. The interaction between oceanic and continental crust in this region continued throughout the Cenozoic Era, maintaining a dynamic tectonic environment. In North America, tectonic activity included both subduction and transform motion depending on the region and time period. Along the western margin, the interaction between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate produced the San Andreas Fault System. This system developed as a transform boundary where the plates moved horizontally past each other. This motion resulted from changes in the configuration of earlier subduction zones. The movement along this fault system caused displacement of crustal blocks over long distances. Inland regions experienced extension in some areas, leading to the formation of basins and ranges where the crust was stretched and broken into faulted blocks. The North American continent also experienced volcanic activity in certain inland regions due to mantle processes and past subduction events. The Yellowstone region developed volcanic features related to a mantle hotspot, where hot material rises from deep within Earth and interacts with the crust above. This hotspot produced large volcanic eruptions over time and created a region of geothermal activity. The movement of the North American plate over this hotspot caused changes in the location of volcanic centers across geological time. In Europe and parts of Western Asia, tectonic activity during the Cenozoic era was strongly influenced by the collision between the African plate and the Eurasian plate. This convergence produced mountain belts that extended across southern Europe and into the Mediterranean region. The crust in this area was compressed, folded and uplifted, forming complex structures of mountains and basins. The Mediterranean region experienced repeated changes in sea level and basin formation due to ongoing tectonic forces. Subduction zones existed in parts of this region, where oceanic crust descended beneath continental crust, producing volcanic activity in certain areas. The motion of the Australian plate during the Cenozoic era involved gradual movement northward after its separation from Antarctica. This movement brought the Australian landmass closer to Southeast Asia. As it moved, the plate interacted with surrounding oceanic plates, producing zones of subduction and volcanic activity in island regions. The northern boundary of the Australian plate experienced complex interactions with smaller plates and microplates, leading to the formation of island arcs and deep ocean trenches. These interactions contributed to seismic activity and volcanic processes in the surrounding oceanic regions. Antarctica remained positioned near the southern polar region during the Cenozoic era. It became increasingly isolated as oceanic gateways opened around it due to plate motion. The opening of ocean passages between Antarctica and other continents allowed the development of ocean currents that circulated around the continent. The separation of Antarctica from South America and Australia through seafloor spreading created wide ocean basins. These tectonic changes influenced the physical conditions surrounding Antarctica and maintained its isolated position. The mid-ocean ridge system that runs through the world's oceans remained active throughout the Cenozoic era. This global system of underwater volcanic ridges produced new oceanic crust continuously. Magma rose from the mantle, solidified, and formed new rock that added to the ocean floor. This process maintained the movement of plates on a global scale, transformed faults, connected segments of the ridges, and allowed lateral movement between sections of spreading centers. Subduction zones around the edges of ocean basins balanced the creation of new crust by returning older crust to the mantle. Mantle convection played a central role in driving the motion of tectonic plates. Heat from deep inside Earth caused slow movement of solid but deformable rock within the mantle. This movement created forces that acted on the base of the tectonic plates, causing them to move. The distribution of heat and material within the mantle influenced the direction and speed of plate movement in different regions. Variations in mantle structure led to differences in tectonic activity across the globe. Throughout the Cenozoic era, volcanic activity occurred in many regions as a result of subduction, rifting, and mantle hotspots. Subduction zones produced volcanic arcs along continental margins and island chains in oceanic regions. Rifting zones produced volcanic activity where continents were splitting apart. Hotspots created volcanic centers within plates, independent of plate boundaries. These volcanic processes contributed to the formation of new landforms and the recycling of material within Earth's crust. Earthquake activity accompanied many of these tectonic processes. Subduction zones generated deep and shallow earthquakes due to the movement of plates against each other. Transform boundaries produced earthquakes as plates slid horizontally past one another. Rifting zones produced seismic activity as the crust fractured and separated. These earthquakes reflected the ongoing adjustments of Earth's crust to tectonic forces. Sedimentary basins formed in many regions due to tectonic activity. These basins developed in areas where the crust subsided or where structural forces created depressions. Sediments from erosion of nearby highlands accumulated in these basins over long periods. The formation of basins occurred in continental interiors, along mountain fronts, and in coastal regions. These depositional environments recorded the history of tectonic and surface processes during the Cenozoic Era. The arrangement of continents during the Cenozoic Era continued to change slowly through time as plate motion persisted. Ocean basins expanded in some regions while contracting in others. Mountain systems continued to rise in zones of collision and subduction. Rift systems continued to develop in regions where the crust was under extension. These processes operated continuously across millions of years, shaping the surface of Earth through ongoing movement of its outer layer. Early human ancestors appeared during the long span of the Cenozoic Era, a time when Earth's living world changed slowly and many new groups of animals developed and spread across different regions. In this era, some primates gradually began to show changes in their bodies and behavior that would later lead to the first hominins, which are the early members of the human family line. These early hominins did not appear suddenly but came through a long process of small changes passed from one generation to another over many millions of years. The Cenozoic Era began after the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs and continued as mammals expanded into many environments. Among these mammals were primates, a group that already had certain useful traits such as grasping hands, forward-facing eyes, and flexible limbs. Over time, some primates living in Africa began to develop new features that helped them move and survive in changing environments. These changes formed the foundation for the appearance of early hominins. The earliest known hominin-like species appeared several million years after the start of primate evolution. These early forms lived in parts of Africa where forests and open woodlands existed side by side. The environment was not stable and changed gradually over time, which influenced how these primates moved, fed, and behaved. Some groups spent more time on the ground rather than in trees, and this shift played an important role in shaping new physical traits. One of the key traits that set early hominins apart from other primates was the development of upright walking. This form of movement, known as bipedalism, meant walking on two legs instead of using all four limbs for movement. Early hominins did not walk exactly like modern humans at first, but their skeletons began to show signs of this change. The bones in the lower spine, hips and legs gradually adjusted to support body weight in a more upright position. This change allowed them to move across open areas more efficiently, while still being able to climb trees when needed. The shape of the feet also began to change. Instead of having feet mainly designed for gripping branches, early hominins developed stronger heel bones and arches that helped support walking on the ground. The toes became shorter and less curved, which improved balance during upright movement. These changes happened slowly and were not identical in all early species, but they all pointed toward a shift in movement style. Another important trait that developed was changes in the hands. Early hominins still kept the ability to grasp objects, but their hands became more useful for handling and manipulating items on the ground. The thumb became stronger and more flexible in some species, allowing better grip and control. This improvement made it easier to hold food move objects, and possibly use simple, natural tools, such as sticks or stones. Although tool use in the earliest stages was very basic and not always consistent, the physical structure for handling objects was becoming more advanced. The size and shape of the skull also changed over time. Early hominins had smaller brains compared to modern humans, but gradual increases in brain size were observed in later species. The front part of the brain, which is linked to planning and decision-making, began to develop more complex structures. At the same time, the face became less protruding in some species, and the teeth started to change in size and shape. These changes reflected shifts in diet and behavior, as early hominins adapted to different food sources available in their environment. Teeth played an important role in understanding early hominins. Many early species had large molars and thick enamel, which helped them chew tough plant materials, such as roots, seeds, and fibrous plants. Over time, some groups showed changes in tooth size and jaw strength, suggesting differences in diet. These dental changes provide important evidence of how early hominins lived and what they ate during different stages of the Cenozoic era. Body size also varied among early hominin species. Some were small and lightly built, while others became larger and more robust. These differences depended on environment, food availability, and survival strategies. Even within the same species, there could be differences between individuals living in different regions. Despite these variations, most early hominins shared the common feature of upright movement and a mix of climbing and walking abilities. Social behavior may also have been changing during this time. Early hominins likely lived in small groups, which helped them survive in environments where food and safety were uncertain. Living in groups allowed individuals to share information about food sources and stay alert to danger. Communication would have been based on sounds, gestures, and facial expressions. Although language in the modern sense did not exist yet, early forms of communication were likely developing through repeated interactions and group living. The environment of the Cenozoic era played a major role in shaping early hominin evolution. As forests slowly gave way to more open landscapes in some regions, early hominins had to adapt to new conditions. Walking upright became more useful for seeing over tall grasses and moving across wider areas. At the same time, trees remained important for shelter and safety, so early hominins kept some climbing abilities. This combination of ground and tree adaptation influenced many of their physical features. Climate changes during the Cenozoic era also affected food availability and living conditions. Periods of warmer and cooler temperatures caused shifts in vegetation patterns. These changes forced early hominins to adjust their diets and movement patterns. Flexibility in behavior became an important trait for survival. Species that could adapt to different conditions were more likely to continue over long periods. Fossil evidence from different parts of Africa shows a wide range of early hominin species with different characteristics. Some fossils show strong adaptations for climbing, while others show stronger adaptations for walking on the ground. This variation suggests that early human ancestors were not a single, straight line of development, but a branching group of related species, each adapting in its own way to environmental conditions. As time continued through the Cenozoic era, some early hominin groups began to show more advanced features. Brain size increased further in later species, and tool use became more common and more complex. Hand control improved, and walking became more efficient and fully upright in later forms. These developments happened gradually and were the result of many small changes over long periods of time. The appearance of early human ancestors marked a significant stage in the history of life during the Cenozoic Era. These early hominins carried a combination of traits that included upright walking, adaptable hands, changing teeth and growing brain capacity. They lived in environments that required flexibility and adjustment, and their bodies reflected these demands through slow and steady development over millions of years.